What up, what up? Salvador Briggman here. Welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. As you know, I'm sure you've listened to this show before, and if you haven't, we talk about everything crowdfunding. We talk about Kickstarter, Indiegogo. We get into different verticals on this show. We talk about different categories, tabletops, card games, comic books, get even into physical products, technology, gadgets, and gizmos. I bring on musicians who are absolutely playing to roaring audiences, bring on people who are theater majors and doing theater projects and really cool stuff. And I think the important thing with this show is that it's really just like a slice of success that is happening on Kickstarter, Indiegogo, other crowdfunding sites like WeFunder, GoFundMe, nonprofit fundraising, etc. And that's really the whole point, is that this is about opportunity. This show is, if I could sum it up in one word, is about something that's happening that you should be taking notice of. And the reason is that you think about when you're trying to go and explore a new territory, if you're the first settlers in America and you look out there west and you're like, look at all of that unexplored land, my friend. Look at all of those beautiful trees and look at all the rivers and the lakes. And I just want to go explore that. Like, look at that. And you never know, because when you're exploring, sometimes you reach that fertile land and you're able to discover gold, or you're able to discover a whole new natural resource, or an incredibly beautiful and bountiful terrain where you can build just a whole new town or a whole new city. And no one knew about that before. And that's really what I try to do with this podcast, is I try to share with you things that are happening. Like, look at this, man. Look at how you can use this in order to combat that objection that we always have of, I need funds, I need resources, I need this to be able to get on the other side and be successful with whatever I'm trying to do, whether that's an e-commerce business, whether it's a tabletop game, a startup, etc. That's what I try to do with this show. So on today's episode, I talk with more of a creative entrepreneur. So this is someone who's done a tabletop game and raised over $300,000 on Kickstarter from more than 7,000 backers. However, a lot of the techniques that we talk about and a lot of these strategies are applicable to literally any category on Kickstarter. So you're not only going to hear a really killer story when it comes to this, but also learn a bit about the insider tricks in order to get a campaign funded if you've never done one before. And if you have done one before, this is a killer way to just stay up to date with your craft and some of the stuff that's working nowadays, some of the stuff that is continuing to work, or new things in order to get your project funded. So first of all, I hope that you really enjoy today's podcast episode. In addition, if you're looking for a free resource in order to learn a little bit more about Kickstarter, I have a link for you. You can go to crowdcrux.com/newsletter. That link is crowdcrux.com/newsletter, crowdcrux.com/newsletter. That link will take you to just a simple form, and you can join my killer crowdfunding tips newsletter. Very cool. The other thing that I want to share with you is a book that I wrote called the Kickstarter Launch Formula. Now, this is really good, I think, for beginners, but also if you've been reading around, you're like, I kind of feel like a lot of this stuff scrapes the surface, but I really want something deep. I really want Sal to use his brain and dissect this entire process for me and just tell me how it is, give me the paint by numbers formula. That's really what the Kickstarter Launch Formula is about, is me trying to take this whole complex process and just make it simple for you, So if you're interested in that, you can download the Audible version of that book. You can go to crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter audio. That link is crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter audio, crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter audio. That being said, let's get into today's podcast with Spire's End, where this entrepreneur was able to attract more than 7,000 backers and raise over $300K on Kickstarter. It's coming up right after this. If you're worried about the fulfillment and shipping part of your Kickstarter campaign when it comes to getting out all those perks and rewards to your backers, rest assured, I've put together a complete Kickstarter fulfillment and shipping checklist for you, and it's free. This is sponsored by the folks at Fulfillrite, and they thought that you should have this checklist as part of your arsenal going into a crowdfunding campaign. If you want to get instant access to this checklist and it's free, you can go to fulfillrite.com/checklist. Again, that is fulfillrite.com/checklist, fulfillrite.com/checklist. Just go to that link and you can download it immediately. Hey guys, welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. Today we have a mega success on the show. This is an individual who has attracted more than 5,000 backers, over 200K that's been raised for their Kickstarter tabletop game. And we are privileged enough to be speaking with the creator here today. Greg, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Sure, man. I'd love to get started. You were telling me a little bit before the interview. Maybe you could just tell the listeners a bit about the project. And for those that don't have it in front of them right there, can kind of describe that a little bit.
Sure. It's describe it as a game book card game hybrid. It's a choose your own adventure that's set up in a deck of cards. So it's kind of like took a game book or a choose your own adventure, kind of tore it apart, kind of distilled it, and then tried to create a card game out of it and do some unique things that you potentially wouldn't be able to do in a book.
You also got some really cool, like gritty, interesting artwork as well that kind of goes along with it.
Yeah, I did one already, kind of the same kind of format, and that was called Spire's End, and that one was more adult and horror based, and it was really gritty. It did a lot of things to make it look kind of ripped up and distressed and destroyed, and then made it look like a fanzine and had only black and white, and then with hits of red, and that went pretty well. And so now I kind of took that format and then kind of went in a different style. So now this new one, Hildegard, is kind of more of a everyone can play it, like my 9-year-old daughter can play, and it's not geared for kids, it's not geared for families, but they can play. It's just more of a all audience type game.
So when did you launch your first campaign on Kickstarter?
I think it was 2019. It's been so long now. The first game took over 3 years for me to develop and make and do all that stuff. It was my first game, so it feels like it's been forever, but I think it ended in November of 2019. And it was delivered pretty much on time that following summer in July.
Has this been something you've been doing for a long time, creating these games, or is this like a new initiative for you?
I've been a designer, art director, graphic designer for about 20 years now, but I was, just working on different products and different companies and doing websites and advertising, collateral, all that stuff. Yeah, and I wanted to do something on my own that was a little different. And I always kind of had this game in my head that I didn't feel was out there that I really wanted to play. And, I thought, well, maybe this is something I can do on my own. This is something I can tackle. And I was playing a lot of tabletop games at the time. And I just kind of pulled the trigger and said, you know what, let's just go for it. And, what have I got to lose? And we'll see what happens.
Yeah, just kind of the jumping off the cliff there, assembling the plane on the way down kind of deal, right?
Yeah, I guess you could call it that. There was a lot of plummeting.
But you also did great, man. You did a great campaign. It looks like the first one.
It was very surprising. I expected so little that, I was trying to figure out what I was going to do, like my exit strategy. I expected nothing. I was completely and totally shocked that, half a day later it was funded. I mean, it seems so small now when I look back, such a small deal, but it was such a big deal to me.
So it's almost like that was a moment where it was kind of validated that this was possible, right, for you to do.
Well, I don't even know if the validation came then. It was still so fresh and so new, and I felt like an imposter. I was like, oh my gosh, all these people, they expect this thing from me. I was sleepless nights, just like, my God, now I'm in it. There's no turning back. Like I can remember, a few days before it was ending, and I was like, I could just turn this thing off. I could just turn this thing off and walk away, and I could just forget about this, before all this money goes into the account, and then I am in. But I went through with it, and I'm glad I did.
Yeah, I think that's something we don't talk about too much. Also, is just like a lot of people think success in that way is just exciting, right? But there's also that nerve-wracking component of like, oh, now all these people are expecting something from me, right? There's an obligation there.
Yeah, unfortunately, people all the time. I mean, it's probably just my nature, but everyone's like, "Oh, aren't you excited? I mean, look at this. I mean, look at this thing is exploding." And from my perspective, and this may be a little sad, but I just look at it as there's just more eyeballs on me. There's just more people criticizing it, more people loving it, more people asking questions about it. And I mean, obviously, that's what you want, and I appreciate all of it. I appreciate all the questions and the criticisms and the compliments and all that. But, it's very, very shocking when you work isolated in your garage on something for 3 years to then have thousands of people coming at you at all times. So it becomes very overwhelming. And especially like this time around, because this is, triple the size practically. It's
Mhm.
That's what you feel, at least that's what I feel the most, is just the intensity of all the people and the fact that I have to live up to, the expectations, because the first time there was no expectations really. And it ended up turning out all right. And I got some, good reviews and everything. So now it's just like this, it's like that
Yeah.
second album syndrome, you know, which I
Yeah.
think, yeah, if I make new music, are people going to like it? If I make the same songs, is everyone going to, angry because, I didn't do anything new, so there's that fine line.
So you had that expectation going in, obviously, and you've learned a lot, I'm sure, with fulfillment and everything. Did you find that to be true? Did you find that the community was very angry and those kinds of things, or was it very proactive and positive? Like, what did you feel like the community was like?
Well, I think what the community is and what my perception of it was is different. Again, it might be just my attitude toward things, but if I have 1,000 people saying how much they love it, and then I have 10 people saying how much they hate it, I fixate all my energy on those 10 people, trying to
Mm,
figure out why they hate it. What did I do wrong? How can I make this better? And what people always tell me is, look, there's a vocal minority that are always going to be, you know, speaking loudly about what it is that they'd like to see or what it is that they don't like. And you just have to learn to deal with it. And that's, I mean, that's just something
yeah.
that you got to do along the way. But to answer the original question, it was very positive in general. I feel like everything was really positive. Yeah, people seem to be really, really happy that it
Yeah.
more or less delivered on time. I said it was going to deliver in July. Some people got it in July, not most of them, but it did start delivering,
Mhm.
then. So yeah, the experience was more or less positive.
Got it. Got it. And one other follow up question I had to that was, how did that moment, or how is this, I guess, ability to kind of get into the tabletop game world, how has that changed your life? Is this something that is now your full time discipline? Is this something that, is sort of exciting and taking over your career and you're moving in that direction? How has that changed your life?
This is what I do. I day in, day out, every day. During COVID, I was doing freelance work, and that period of time, it kind of fizzled out. And then I had already been working. That was when I was finishing up the last game. So it just gave me an opportunity to make this my, give this my complete attention. It actually worked out timing wise. It worked out really well for me because I kind of turned into my own little fulfillment center here and started, full development on the next game. And now, yeah, this is it. This is what I do all the time. So
What do you find to be like the coolest part of this? So there's obviously like gameplay and thinking through that. There's the graphics, the art, there's the financial aspect. Like what part do you connect most with when it comes to being a creator?
well, since I'm a designer, it's the heart of the project for me is the mood, the vibe, the look, the art. It's that kind of stuff. I mean, what I probably should be saying is the narrative and the story, because it's a story driven narrative game. And that's very, very important. I don't want to take away from that. But, you're getting little bite sized pieces on cards. So, I mean, the game is in essence about a mood, it's about a feeling. I've always tried to, I want it to feel a certain way more than anything else. Like the first game was supposed to feel scratchy and kind of a little bit disturbing but fun. It's gory. It's supposed to feel like something maybe you found in your attic that you kind of dusted off, and it looks like it's like, oh, what's this cool thing I just found from like the late 70s or something. But
Mm,
it has a little modern design aesthetics to it.
love the
But it
box.
was kind of
Yeah,
supposed
looks
to,
cool.
yeah, but it's supposed to have that kind of vibe. And then with this one, it's supposed to be like I was calling it card game comfort food, where I really just want people to have that kind of feeling of lighthearted adventure and set the tone. And that's the most fun for me is like right now, currently, me and Diego, the artist for the game, he's been sending me the inked art and then I color it. And it's so much fun. That's the best part of this whole job is working with him on the actual art for the cards
Mm.
and then seeing the cards come to me and kind of realizing, these images you've had in your head, seeing them on paper, and then I get to color them like a kid with a coloring book. And it's the absolute most rewarding part. And that's what I'm doing right now. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean that's super cool, and that obviously takes a lot of forethought of like, what do you want your game to feel like and what do you want the vibe to be, which is cool when it finally comes to light. One of the things I think, just by byproduct of doing lots of interviews and putting out a lot of content, we always like to drill into like the best practices of Kickstarter. But it sounds to me like you don't necessarily always have to follow some of these common practices to be successful. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and that's one of the things. It's funny. There's, you can read forever on all the do's and don'ts for Kickstarter, and I did do a lot of that. And then after a while, I started throw some of those things away because they just didn't seem to apply to me, or at least maybe I was too stubborn. But I just felt, this isn't a traditional tabletop game. It's partly a book. I can take away some things, but I think as a kind of a creator, you need to look at in terms of what are the pieces of this advice that are going to best serve me, and don't try and force the other ones to work for you. On my Kickstarter page currently, there's a few things I do right off the bat that are no-nos. They're things that you're not supposed to do, or they're at least common practices that I should have done that I didn't do. For the starters, I didn't do any video at all. There's no advertising, promotional video, no stinger video up top of the page. And I did that for a few reasons. I don't particularly care for a lot of the videos. They don't draw me in, and I'm not going to play a game. A tabletop game doesn't have a video. You're playing the cards. So I've always I skip by them. Oftentimes I don't even play them. And I know that most of the time people say, you have to have this. You have to have this. I didn't have it the first time. Now, maybe I would have done a lot better had I had one. But I stuck with that and did it again and just put a nice picture. What I felt was the best image that set the mood for the game. I showed one picture of the main character, and then I have a wall of text. And that's the next thing that they say.
Don't do.
Most people say, don't have too much text up front. My feeling was that those two images should be, if those two images aren't striking enough, if they don't pull you in, I don't think I've done my job properly. So I put a lot of weight on those two images, and then felt this is a narrative, copy-driven game, and this is how the game is going to be. You're going to get a striking image, you're going to get copy. So I gave people exactly what I feel like this game is, and then I took it from there. So, again, kind of a long-winded answer, but those are just two things off the bat that I didn't do for my particular, very specific reasons.
So to add on to that, first of all, I think that you're thinking about it a lot more deeply than a lot of creators that advice is intended for. So you are thinking as a marketer, right? You're thinking about how are people going to feel, how people are going to react to this, right? And you're just making different decisions there. And I think that makes a lot of sense. I think that advice is usually for people that, aren't thinking to the degree that you are when it comes to that. But I think that's a great example of how you don't necessarily need a video to be super successful here. So I think that's awesome, man. The other thing is, as I'm going down the page here, I love the way that you structured things, and you sort of have really great artwork, and you also have some text and kind of adding into that. And you have some videos further down the page with your newer campaign explaining on it and the gameplay. So it works, and I think that's the most important thing,
Yeah, and also that's one of the hardest things. I dreaded doing the second Kickstarter campaign page because
the editor, man.
Well, I mean, it's not that. It's just getting it, because this is what I design things and I lay things out much more critical than I think most would be with this. So, and that's also the thing. I have no gauge as to, because I've never worked on anyone else's Kickstarter page. I don't know how long people spend doing this. I don't know if they throw it up in a week or if they spend, months on it. Fortunately or unfortunately, I spent months putting these pages together. Looking at them, drafting them, going over it, looking at the flow of it, pulling things in, pulling things out. I mean, it takes months for me to do it. So I don't know.
You've definitely thought a lot about the user experience, right? And that actually plays a lot into what you did for a living, right? Which is websites, user experience, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think there's an advantage to that.
Yeah, totally.
Just, because I can do that stuff myself. I don't have to hire somebody and try and, tell them what I need. I'm doing everything, other than just the illustrations. Every single portion of this production is done by me.
Yeah.
Layout, design, everything.
So I call that like branding more so. When it comes to like the marketing side of driving traffic, right? Was there anything that you did with this second one that you did differently than the first one? I don't know, but it sounded to me like the first one you just kind of launched and were surprised with it. Did you do anything differently with the second one?
There wasn't any exterior marketing for the first one other than a very small Facebook ad. It was the only thing. I ran it 2 weeks prior and I ran it during. It was like, I mean, just meager. And then, I was using Backpack at the time, and then they have a lot of things that you can do, but I wasn't really offered any of those things. I don't think I was, until it actually got going, because most of their offerings only work if you're at a certain volume. So this time, to answer your question about anything that I did different, it was I tried to do a little the things that the Pledge Manager Backpack does. So, I was on a few emails, major email blasts, with the game on there.
Sure.
And on the first day, I was doing promotions through them.
Did you do anything like telling your old followers or like warming them up at all?
That's primarily what I did. Was I just tried to get as many people as I could on like my Instagram account. And I primarily used my Instagram account to just, because again, it's a mood game, it's about the imagery and stuff like that. So I use that as my primary kind of vehicle to show things. So yeah, over the course, ever since I started the project, I've been kind of slowly pacing out images on there. And that's been the kind of primary source of how I got that out. And then I had two other ways I did it. Was I did open up my own store for Spire's End and had more copies of the game, and I sold it through there. And then I have, my sign up list there. So between Instagram and my contact list on my store, and then the contact list on my prior Kickstarter, it gave me a lot more people to, to announce the new game for.
For sure.
So it was pretty simple. I didn't do anything to, there wasn't any ad budget for this. There wasn't any, obviously any videos. Anyone who did a video for this campaign, like the how-tos and everything, everyone did it because they wanted to. No one was paid.
Very organic. Yeah.
Yeah, I really appreciated that. Everyone did it because they wanted to, and it was just really cool people.
Yeah, I think a lot of your attention to detail shows in the cards. And I mean, honestly, like you got 400 cards, you got all these custom etched dice, rule book, et cetera. Like, how long did it take you to really pull this thing together compared to your first project?
This game hasn't been as long as the last one, because the basic, like the big, I don't want to call them pieces, but just the format of the game has been established. So I kind of built on the last one. And at the beginning, I thought it was going to be really easy. I was like, okay, I built this game. I have it. Now I'm just going to make another one. It's going to have a different size card, and it's going to be simpler, and this will be great. And then as I went along, obviously that all changes. This became much more complicated, and it took on a life of its own. But even so, it's still not been as overwhelming development-wise, I don't think, compared to the first one.
Got it.
Now it's just the length of it. It's just the length. There's just more game now. There's more, and that's why it's taking longer. I'm breaking there's the 4 chapters. I'm 5 cards into chapter 3. I know the outline of chapter 3. I know where it's going, and I know all the kind of like the main beats. But now I'm doing the specifics. So
when it comes to, you mentioned starting an online store, right? When it comes to kind of turning this initial fire that you've ignited into a business, what has that been like? Because I think a lot of people, they think through like the whole create the game, or I want to do this, but they're not as privy to like the realities of running the business and that kind of stuff. What could you tell creators about that, or any things you'd want to pass on there?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know anything about it either. Really, I've always just worked for people and never had to worry about that stuff. I'd make the promotional stuff and send it to dev or send it to marketing, and do all that. So to do it all yourself, this has been a serious learning curve. So, I just try to keep it really simple. I only have one product, so I just set up
the store,
store. Yeah, and I don't really know much about that. I learned really quickly, because I ordered a bunch of units, and I was like, okay, well, I had a fulfillment company do the Kickstarter, but now I'm going to do it all myself, because I figured I can do this, and I can. It's just overwhelming, because I put that all on my own plate too. So now I'm the fulfillment, customer service, and game designer at the same time. So
yeah, and it makes sense at the stage you're at.
Yeah. So I was sending out boxes until the day the Kickstarter started, this current one, and racing to do some game dev before the next round of boxes come. Games come in, and then I gotta pack those up. So I mean, as far as the takeaway is I think just kind of take it slow and not try and do too much at once. And I think that's why I've been able to kind of do this, because I do only have one product
Mhm.
and I'm kind of taking it at my own pace, and I'm not trying to let demand or outside influence kind of penetrate what I'm doing.
Mhm.
I'm really stubborn. So I think that's helping me.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I think the other thing is too, when you have that level of control, you also have a certain degree of like quality, which you can be assured of, right? And that's obviously important for
Yeah,
the relationship with the customer.
I definitely pack up boxes better than the company that did it. Like I was having so many problems with damaged games. Now that I'm doing it myself, I take too long, and I'm in here, till the wee hours of the night taping things up. But I don't think I've had. I think I've had one game, wreck that went to like the Netherlands or something. So
Mhm.
even on that end of things, I feel pretty good. It's just at some point, I'm going to run out of time.
Yeah, yeah.
If things go well.
For sure. I got a couple of questions for you, but before we do, one of the ones I wanted to ask you is like, you're now here, definitely you've already gotten your start and now you're kind of getting into a different level entirely. What do you want to contribute to like the tabletop game industry or niche or community? Is this about that? Like, you kind of want to have your own style of board games and that kind of stuff? Or what do you really want to contribute here, you think?
Well, I hope this doesn't sound too, kind of highfalutin and pretentious, because my goal is probably something I don't know if I can achieve. I mean, I want a little space that's unique and different. I want this to seem off the beaten path, and one of those things where people, they play games and they do this and that, and they're like, hey, have you ever heard of this little game? It's crazy. It's got its own thing going. I've never seen anything like it, and it's a lot of fun. You should give it a try. I mean, I want it to be that kind of that curiosity or oddity in the corner that really kind of goes to its own beat,
Hmm.
and and it just is unusual and really different from what you'd usually play. And I feel like I mean I feel like it does that. I don't feel like there's much out there that is even remotely close to it. Now, I could be wrong. There could be other things that I haven't found yet, but that's always been my thing. It's been, there's this game in my head, and I think I could do it. I think I could make it. Let's see if other people have the same feelings as I
Hmm.
do.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's kind of like what I wanted to contribute, was just try and give somebody something different, where on a Friday night, they could get together with their wife or their friend, have a pizza, and just kind of and have a good moment.
Yeah, yeah.
Have a memory, and that's the other thing with this. If I can kind of digress on a side path here, is the kind of game I'm making is one that I think gives you moments and it gives you memories, kind of like a video game you play with cutscenes.
Hmm.
It's like I want to look back and I want to remember something. If I play a game of like Azul or chess, or something where I'm just trying to beat my opponent, I can remember the experience, and they're great ones, but it's a totally different thing. This is like a guided story. It's kind of on rails, but there's a few different rails.
Yeah, yeah.
So I want to create some moments and that people can take away, and hopefully, I can do that.
Yeah, I mean that's super awesome, and I think having that or motivation is really important because we have so many screens and stuff nowadays. People don't even spend time with each other, So to have those kinds of memories, whether with your kids or with your friends, that gets way more
Or
invaluable as you get older.
or even by yourself. I mean, because these are both primarily solo games, and it's just also kind of a way to disconnect, just have an analog experience, a tactile experience. People are always asking me, are you going to make an app for it or something? And I love all that stuff, but I don't know if that's necessarily where this game
Hmm.
fits.
Hmm.
It's supposed to be something that's kind of traditional and old school with some modern, kind of ingredients.
Yeah, yeah. One of the other things that you sent over I thought was really interesting in the pre-interview was this idea of like defending yourself. And I think one of the big takeaways I have from this
Mm,
interview is like your thoughts on the crowd and like how you initially were a little bit afraid or scared of certain things happening and they didn't happen and like there's those vocal minority. One of the other takeaways you said was defending yourself never works. I was kind of curious what you meant by that.
yeah, exactly. It goes right back to that whole thing with, people, no matter what you do, no matter what movie you see, no matter how great you think it is, someone else is going to hate it. And in my whole life, it's always been one of those head scratchers. It's like, why doesn't everyone like all the same things I like? You know, you listen to that.
Why aren't they
Listen to
like
that
me?
song. That song is terrible. Why do they like that song? I can't even stand listening to that song. You know, and so taking that kind of idea, you can't convince somebody that that song is bad or that that movie is funny or that movie isn't funny. You know, people laugh at certain things, and you can't emulate that thought yourself. You know, and so when you're on the comment board and somebody says, well, this game would be better if it did this, or you've made a traditional game book type style game and you have forced endings. That's one of them that is particular to mine. Some people don't like the fact that the game just abruptly ends. Like, why would you do that? Games don't do that now. And I did that on purpose. That was part of this game. That's part of the feel of it. That's part of what I wanted it to be. Now, I can't convince people that, that they should like that. It's just, you could defend it all day long. I could tell you, this is my intention. I wanted it this way. And this is, just like I'm saying, and I'm defending it, but you can't win that argument, It's just, and, people, everyone's got their opinion. Everyone thinks, well, you should do this and that. And as soon as you start going down that rabbit hole, especially in a comments feed on like Kickstarter, because that stuff's all in stone. You can't edit it. You can't delete it. And you've got to be really, really careful with what you say. And once you start, it's very difficult to stop. And then you've got this indelible in rock transcript, of you arguing with your backers and
looks
people
bad,
yeah. It's one of the most difficult things about this is keeping yourself tight-lipped, letting people give you feedback, take that feedback and with a smile and just say, and know that they're coming from a place where they're just trying to get what they want,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you're trying to, it's a hard topic to kind of keep right on track here. I know I kind of fling all over the place, but
no, I'm following you. I think the other thing too is like the more you create something really specific, you also turn away people naturally, and you attract other people.
Sure.
So that's really about the community is like you're building a community of people who do like the things you like, and maybe people who don't aren't part of that, right?
Yeah, I always look at it in terms of movies because that's just, I look, like the prequels, I mean, he went in there thinking, whatever he thought, and I thought everyone would love it. And then, a lot of people didn't. And then you got to deal with that, the fact that you try to create this thing or, like, not to just keep this on like a Star Wars thing, but like The Last Jedi, how divisive that is, like people hated it so much and then people loved it. And then, but everyone's intention was to make something good. I don't think anyone's setting out to make a bad thing. They have a creative intent or even they have a financial intent. They want to make a game because they think it's going to make a lot of money or they want to make a game because creatively that's what they want to do. But you're always going to get people that think something different. And, it's just tough to,
for sure,
kind of grapple with that.
Well, this has been awesome, man. I have one more question for you, which is, I think a lot of people looking at your project to be in the position you're at, like you got 5,000 people strong, excited. Do you have any final marketing tips you want to impart? And that can be kind of last question we have. And then I just have one follow-up.
Man, I guess for me, it's just keeping engaged. I've tried to be, now that we're 5,000 backers in, I'm still trying to answer every single email, every single question, every single comment, and just really trying to be there. And I don't have any like big grandiose plans for the end with like crazy stretch goals. It's just not my thing. It's not my style. I'm very focused and lean. To me, it's, it's all about the cards. If the game is good, we shouldn't need all these crazy frills, all these little, things to try and hide. Yeah, to me, it's just like I don't want a sticker or a pen or a T-shirt right now. I want to, not that those things aren't bad, good. People like swag and all that stuff. But for this, I really wanted to focus. So my thing is just being there, being present, and trying to be one of everybody here who's excited about the project.
Got it. And my final question for you, we can end on this note, is if you could speak directly to a person who's listening, who's just getting started, and you can end with, it could be a word of encouragement. It could be something you wish you knew, or wish you feel like you needed to hear before you got started. It could be a final tip, any of those things. And also, where can people go and check out the game?
Oh, well, okay. So I'll start at the end first here. Yeah, I mean, you can check out the game at spirezen.com, and that would lead you to the Kickstarter page and everywhere else. But I mean, the most information is there. I have the rule books for both games there, and FAQ and all that. As far as what I would tell people is, really decide yourself what it is you want first. Think about what you want to create, why you want to create it, and really stick with it, and try not to be influenced too much with what everyone else is saying. Not because it isn't important, just because you need to be focused up front. And if you're doing something, I think, that is going to be successful, you have to start with that, and hopefully other people are going to come on board with you. It's just, I think it's important to have your heart in it, to really be driven by what it is you're doing. And I think if you do that, the product's always going to be better. So, I mean, I know that's a kind of a generic thing. There's so many little details about just all the being prepared, financially, making sure you have all your bases covered, fulfillment companies, there's all these little technical things. But you're not going to get to any of those things if if your drive isn't focused, and if you don't believe wholeheartedly in the project.
Well said. Dude, thank you so much for coming on. You got 7 days to go. I hope you absolutely crush it in those 7 days. But thanks for coming on, Greg, and look forward to your success here.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. Again, my name is Salvador Briggman. Thank you for joining me. I also do a YouTube channel. You might actually be watching this on YouTube, but I do a YouTube channel. I also do this podcast on iTunes and Spotify. A lot of you actually listen to this on iTunes just because they can listen on the go while they're working, while they're going on a run, they're doing the laundry, whatever it is. They like to listen to the podcast there. But in addition, there's a lot of different stuff I've done over the years. So I've been in the industry since 2012, and I've coached a lot of people. I've worked on a lot of campaigns. I put out a lot of content in the crowdfunding niche. I've written 10 books, 4 of which are about crowdfunding specifically, but other ones on marketing and stuff and those kinds of things. And I think for me, the most important thing is to always keep in mind what stage you're in. Okay. And here's why. Like, you look at a project like this and it's raised a bunch of money, 300K plus, and it's very easy to compare yourself and be like, I could never do that. Well, if you think about it, these creators, everyone I've had on the show was in the same place that you are right now, my friends. They were literally in the same place, whether that's having the idea, creating the prototype, doing the play testing, if it's a physical product, doing multiple iterations of the prototype, getting feedback on it, taking it to trade shows, showing people around, doing coaching calls with people like Sal, right? There's every single stage someone has gone through who has been successful. So think about, what stage are you in? Where are you on the roadmap? And if you're not sure, this is a good point to either book a coaching call with me, or I actually have a really cool thing going on right now that I can tell you about that kind of goes step by step through how to actually launch and be successful with one of these campaigns. So, there's a lot of different ways in which you can get started. But at the end of the day, you just got to start taking action, and you got to surround yourself with the right people. And you got to make sure that you're feeding your mind every single day, every single week with the right resources and something that's just keeping you going, keeping you excited. In the same way you have friends when you're going on your hike in a mountain, and they just kind of help you stay motivated. Or you're going for a run and you have a running buddy, just kind of helps you stay motivated. Classes, courses, all those things are great, not only for helping you take action in the right ways and downloading the right information in your head, but also just for the reference experiences for the people around you, to stay with that mastermind mentality of all those other people who are hustling just like you, are the same stage that you're in. And then slowly taking action. Before you know it, in a month's time, you got a project out there, right? And that is exciting. You got something out there that was not there before. So if you feel like that's something that can be positive for you, if you want to surround yourself with the right people, the right influences, the right education, the right training, the templates, the worksheets, all that stuff, I have a killer resource for you that you got to check out. This is something that I call my mastermind. And what is mastermind? I feel like it's such a word that we throw around. I think of a mastermind as really a place where not only can you have a really high level interactive training environment where you can gain access to a mentor like me. You can gain access to other supporting resources like worksheets, templates, checklists, fill in the blank kind of templates, that kind of stuff. But you can also network with other creators if you want to. And you can kind of participate in this upward surge. There's that saying that a rising tide will lift all of the boats. It's so much easier to conquer a nation when you're charging at that nation. You got a whole army behind you of people that are cheering you on, right? That's why I think that teams are just so successful nowadays. And anything that's been big, that's been done, has always been done by a team of people. So if you want to join that team and you want to gain access to me as a mentor, and you want to really set yourself up for success, check out the link that I'm about to mention. It's crowdcrux.com/mastermind. That link is crowdcrux.com/mastermind. crowdcrux.com/mastermind. I know that I think that word is just overhyped nowadays, but it's really the best way to describe it. And to me, this is such a new level of things that I'm doing in forms of a teaching format that is so freaking exciting. I can't wait to see you. And there's so much cool stuff on the other side. Anyway, thank you so much for listening to the show. Hope you rate it and review it on iTunes if you can, crowdcrux.com/iTunes. If you're on YouTube, give me a thumbs up. It means so much. Again, my name is Sal, and I'll see you next time.